He just got back from fair, and he was going to come over and either tug her hair in the kitchen or pop one of her balloons. And I guess Haley had this look on her face towards the door frame. And when he turned around to look, they both saw this entity that was about 6 feet tall, pale gray skin, no eyes, just like completely black eye sockets.
I am looking at it right now, guys. If you Google evil in Exeter, and also buy the book, by the way. Bryce, are you ready for this?
I have also Googled it, and I regret it deeply. I regret Googling that.
On today's episode of Hollyweird Paranormal, guys, we travel this time to Canada. We head out to Halifax, Nova Scotia, where we hang and speak with our friend Elliott Van Dusen. Elliott is the director of Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation, an organization dedicated to the collection, analysis, and distribution of all supernatural events in Canada. And while Elliott is overseeing the direction of PPRI, he's also an author. He has written 2 books, one called Evil in Exeter, based on a true story and field investigation involving the terrifying haunting of a Rhode Island family, and Supernatural Encounters, True Paranormal Accounts from Law Enforcement. Yes, so it turns out that not only is Elliott a paranormal investigator, but he used to serve 15 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. 8 of those years he spent investigating violent crimes. And also some unknown mysteries, and we'll definitely touch on that within our episode. So let's all gather our salt lamps and some pops as we sit around the Chesterfield. That's a little Canadian nudge right there, as we talk about the paranormal with our special guest, Elliott Van Dusen of PPRI. Let's get Hollyweird in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Hey friends, please pardon the sound quality of our interview with Elliott via Skype. Please pardon any dings or in and out frequencies or any pauses. We are paranormal enthusiasts and nerds, not sound engineers, so we try our very best to improve that sound quality as best as we can. And we have some great news. First off, we're going to go back to our regular format of recording our episodes. Yes, straight from my dining room. As before, I know because of this pandemic and Bryce's job, we weren't able to do that face-to-face and in person. We wanted to take precaution and practice social distancing. So we wanted to say thank you so much for your patience and dealing with our Skype episodes, but we really do appreciate each and every one of you. And finally, we have partnered and teamed up with Manscaped to introduce to you their new product, which is the Lawnmower 4.0. And here's our little promo with Manscaped. Hey guys, we're here to talk about your balls.
And I think that's a subject that everyone is interested in.
Yes, of course. Another thing I have to ask everyone out there is, I wonder if ghosts have balls?
Look, I don't really believe in ghosts. If you've listened to any of our episodes, you know that I'm pretty much a skeptic, except if I can come back as a ghost and teabag people that were mean to me in middle school, I'm a believer. So I'm sold.
Yes, we have partnered up with Manscaped to introduce to you the Lawnmower 4.0.
And if any of you follow me on Instagram or any of our social medias, you know that your girl is hairy.
Yes.
So when they contacted us and asked if we wanted to partner, it was an instant yes for me because especially as we move into summer months, I need help.
Yes, you want to get out of hot dad bod into like hot rad bod, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you like that, huh?
I like it.
You know, there's landscaping and there's manscaping. And there's also womanscaping. So I'm trying to prepare for hot girl summer myself.
Hell yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the Lawnmower 4.0, Bryce.
Well, what I want to start with is that I have tried every option short of lasering to remove hair from my body. I am a very hairy boy, and it's very hot in Southern California. The two do not mix. So I've tried razors, I've tried electric shavers, I've tried Nair, I've tried waxing, and all of those come with nicks. They come with chemical burns. Girl, you don't want a chemical burn.
Especially in your balls.
On your balls, on your gooch. It's not cute. It's not cute.
Especially on your lady bits, ladies.
No.
Now, imagine shaving with a sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom.
I'm going to go with my second favorite time.
Ooh, what's your first?
I just got a bidet over this last year, and it is life-changing.
Oh my God, I'm jealous now.
But this will be number 2.
Wow, you bideted and now you get to Manscaped.
That's right. It's a whole journey.
What do you like about the Lawnmower 4.0, Bryce?
One of the best parts is that it's engineered so that the ceramic blades are actually contoured so that they're not cutting you. That's the main thing for me, is that
nice.
A regular razor, an electric razor, any of those metal blades, they're going to nick you. And that is not a cute look. Nobody wants to see that. With a ceramic blade, it's designed with your safety in mind.
This is also upgraded with a 4000K LED spotlight. It is customized with trim additional guard lengths with sizes 1 through 4. And did I mention it's also wireless charging?
The future.
I know. The future is in wireless. The new wireless charging system uses electric magnetic induction, which can help battery lengths last longer. There's, electric magnetic fields, and even when it comes to shaving, there's electric magnetic induction.
Ugh, we're basically on Mars as it is.
I know, but that does sound sexual, doesn't it?
It does. Mm-hmm. And speaking of sexual, if you really think about it, if you've been shaving using the same trimmer on your face and your balls, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
that's
you're
not
doing
it.
Completely wrong.
And ultimately, you don't want to end up with pubes in your mouth unless it's like, I don't know, your Henry Cavill fanfic. And we all have it. We all have it. So no shame, but let us help you. So if you go to manscaped.com, you can get 20% off and free shipping as long as you use the code paranormal. That's manscaped.com, code paranormal.
Groom with confidence with Manscaped. Now let's get Hollyweird.
Hey guys, welcome to Hollyweird Paranormal. I am your host, Tammy Merhab Chavez.
Hello, I'm Bryce Mitchell-Williams.
And we have another great treat for you guys on this episode. Now, last episode, we interviewed Tanya Vache Import as we got Hollyweird with Santeria. And now we're going to get Hollyweird in Canada, because we have a Canadian on board.
That's
we have paranormal investigator, writer, parapsychologist, Elliot Van Dusen.
Yay.
Elliot, welcome to Hollyweird Paranormal. We're just so happy to have you on board.
Thank you so much for being here.
Well, no problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, in the intro that I have mentioned before, you guys have heard what he's been through, what he's accomplished. I am just saying that it's hard for me to finish the crochet project that I started a year ago and a book. And after reading Elliot's bio, I really need to catch up on a lot of things. Elliot, where do you have the time? This is amazing. I mean, everything that you've gone through and that you've studied. Let's talk about your journey as a paranormal investigator and your beginnings with PPRI.
Sure, thank you. And thanks again for having me on the show. So I've been doing this for 24 years. I started when I was, I want to say around 16. Shows like Unsolved Mysteries and The X-Files kind of got me interested in the paranormal. I was always interested in law enforcement and the paranormal, so Unsolved Mysteries kind of had a bit of both. When I saw X-Files and saw the investigation of the paranormal, that really kind of got my interest in the subject. So I started paranormal phenomena research and investigation, which initially just started out to be myself and another investigator. And we, created a website back in the .com days and, offered services for free. And the odd time we'd get, contacted with a case and we'd go out and do a little bit of investigating. And then it wasn't until around 2000 that my mother actually saw a newspaper article in the paper saying that there was a parapsychologist teaching a course at our local community college. So I checked it out, read the article, went online, booked myself into the course, took it, really enjoyed it. And then he was offering a second course. I ended up taking the second course. So the first course was about apparitions and ghosts. The second course was more about, extrasensory perception, psychics, mediums. And after I completed both of those courses, he offered me an investigator spot at his organization, which was called the Center for Parapsychological Studies in Canada. And so it was there that I kind of got my experience in investigating hauntings and some other strange cases. There was a report of a black panther in an area, so it was kind of like a cryptozoological type investigation.
Whoa.
And just as time went on, I continued to take more courses from all over. There was a diploma program in Toronto in parapsychology. I took that, and I signed up for a bunch of other courses. I've studied, a lot through the Ryan Education Center. I've gotten, a course through University of Edinburgh. I took a witchcraft course from University of Ottawa. So I just kind of, bounced around and tried to get as much knowledge as I can on the subject. And it wasn't until I retired in May of 2020 with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is Canada's federal police, that I've had the time to pursue this full time, for the first time. That when I was a teenager, I was working, jobs and going to school and doing this on the side. And then when I was with the RCMP, I was a little bit more quieter doing it because there can be a stigma attached to the paranormal and law enforcement, of course. And now that I'm retired, this is all that I'm doing, and my second passion next to law enforcement. So I feel very fortunate that I'm able to do that.
You're very lucky. I'm
amazing.
doing this part-time with, whatever job I have going in the industry. Yeah. But that's so amazing that you're continuing this passion of yours. Let's jump into this. So you mentioned your time with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which I don't know, when I say that, it just sounds so fancy. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It inspired you to write I think it was your first book. Is that correct? It was Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement. And anything that has to do with law enforcement and the paranormal, we are here for, because I feel that because you guys are always, out in the field, that you're seeing a lot of things that, the public is not really noticing and seeing and knowing about. Can you tell us about this book and this other, I think it's the second one that's to follow?
Yes. So I actually wrote a book before that. It was called Evil in Exeter, and it was about a haunting investigation in Rhode Island. And after I finished that book, my mother actually said to me, "Oh, you should write another book." And I said, "Well," big investigations don't really come along every day. And I said, "I don't really know what else I'd write about." But the idea kind of stuck with me. And as I thought about it, I was thinking about my career in law enforcement, which I knew was, I was starting to get tired of it. And then I was thinking about the paranormal, which has, always been my passion, and I've never really gotten tired of that. And I said, I'm going to reach out to a few friends of mine that are in the force, and some sheriff buddies and some security officers, and just kind of see if they have any stories. And so I initially reached out to a few people and got a few stories, and then they recommended that I talk to some other people, and I talked to them and got some more stories. And before I knew it, I had collected well over 50 stories, and I probably worked on the book for a year. And then, of course, once it came out, it did really well, especially around the pandemic time where you couldn't do book signings, and you still can't do book signings here. So that obviously hurts things. I was doing public lectures for free at the Halifax library system, and of course that's all been put to an end because of COVID as well. So I wasn't really sure how the book was going to do, but it ended up being pretty popular, and I had a lot more people reach out to me with more stories that were law enforcement. So of course I would take note of them, and then before I knew it, I was kind of caught into writing a second one. So so I've got more Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement scheduled to come out this fall. I'm still working on it. Still got a few stories that I just recently collected, and it should be good. And it's got a variety of stories, just like the first one. It'll have some UFO stories, some ghost stories, really cool near-death experience. an update on there's a Bigfoot up in northern, like North Canada, up in the Northwest Territories that they call the Bushman, and so there's an update on that. I talked to someone else that worked in the community that had a story about it. So yeah, it'll be really interesting for those that enjoyed the first one.
Wow.
It seems like you have created, a very safe community, and like a lot of paranormal investigation groups and podcasts, we kind of, I guess, like unconsciously create this community of ours for people to come in and share their stories, knowing that this is a safe space. You writing this book and having these law enforcement individuals come forward with their stories, because I'm sure that this is still like something that people don't, take seriously. It seems like there's been just a flood of these stories, and people who, I guess, in your opinion, don't believe in it until they finally have seen it, and then they're willing to share the story with you. Are these stories that are given to you, there's a certain undertone during your training within law enforcement where your direct colleagues kind of share with you? Like, do they mention a potential way of dealing with the paranormal while you're serving your community in some way?
No, not really. I was asked a similar question like that before. The question was whether or not law enforcement receives any training to deal with the supernatural, and the answer to that is no. I've never seen any sort of training. We get lots of mental health training and lots of close quarter combat training and firearms training, driving training, all that kind of stuff, but nothing like that. And I guess it's always interesting when you read, especially poltergeist cases, you'll read that law enforcement's usually called as a last resort because the family doesn't know what to do. There's items flying all over the place. So they call the police. And it seems a lot of times the police come, and when they do witness something supernatural, then they end up getting the church involved. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. And the other interesting thing about law enforcement and paranormal investigations is some places are really open to it. There's a police department in Rhode Island, for example, that I found one story about, because on their Facebook website, they had posted around Halloween that they had received a report of a lady running in a white dress in the middle of the night, screaming for help. And so they sent 2 officers there. They conducted a patrol. They didn't find anybody. So they put on their Facebook, they were being mostly serious, but they kind of had a fun tone to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was it because it's like Halloween and
because it was close to Halloween, and they just said, listen, we got a call last night of a lady in white screaming. We couldn't find her. If anyone else has any information about it, please call the department. But the area where this report was made is known to be haunted, and they talked about this graveyard where a ghost that she was basically the townsfolk kind of looked at her like a vampire, and her name's Nellie Vaughn. And they basically said sometimes reports of Nellie Vaughn are seen like with her walking through the graveyard, and some people that have visited the graveyard have had run-ins and experiences with her. So they said, was somebody calling the police because they needed help that night, or did somebody possibly see the ghost of Nellie Vaughn? So I thought that was kind of cool, because you could tell they were being serious, but with a little bit of a fun twist to it. So that was kind of neat to see that.
That is very interesting that they would post something like that in regards to other people's reports. And I know in class, like in the investigative technique class that we take with Lloyd Auerbach, it's all about, the interviews and, the collection of these first accounts. And if they all kind of parallel, then there's something there to investigate, which, something that, we always have to take into consideration as investigators ourselves. But do you think these potentially unexplainable calls related to locations where horrible acts of violence were committed, or possibly lore is heightened when you're serving, in law enforcement?
I think it depends on the area for sure. In my next book there that's coming out in the fall, I had interviewed a female RCMP officer who works in British Columbia, and there's a old abandoned mental institution hospital that they film a lot of. They actually filmed a scene from Deadpool in it. They filmed an X-Files episode in it. A lot of horror movies use the property now just to film because it's got like that historical aspect to it. And I know she said when she first started working in the area that her trainer had warned her of this property and just, to be careful going up there because film crews lock all their stuff up there and people try and break in and it's just dangerous and it's got like this creepy vibe to it. And she told me about this one call that they went to and her freshly charged flashlight that she had charged for night shift immediately died on her. And there was, I think there were 6 of them that went to this place. It was basically an alarm call. So they assumed someone was breaking in and possibly stealing film equipment. So they went there and believe out of the 6 of them, 3 of their flashlights had died on them in this area. And that,
oh my God.
I mean, that's one thing that happened. That was the only thing that they said happened, but they said it freaked them out kind of thing. And, whether or not, the flashlights just were faulty or they weren't charged properly, it's still interesting just because the place had, quite the history. As you know, most, mental institutions back in those days didn't really treat the patients properly and ethically. So it always has a lot of residual energy left at locations like that.
There was a video that came out I think it was like a year ago. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was about that hotel security guard that responds to a call or a complaint or several complaints about hearing screaming in a hotel room. And you can see on the CCTV camera footage that you hear screaming. He approaches the hotel room. He goes in. It's no one there. He does a walkthrough, comes out, and you can see, I guess, something coming out of the room kind of following him. Was that something, I couldn't remember if that was something believable or, that was true or considered false.
I haven't seen that specific video. No, I will have to look for it now. I do remember seeing a video, it might have been on TikTok, of a police officer or security officer going through a graveyard. And then there was, a really loud scream or whatever. And he just kind of looked at the camera and said, nope, and turned around and walked away. I did see that, but I didn't see the one you were referring to. The one thing that I like, it's different now. When I first started, and because people today, they still email you pictures and photographs and videos, and they want you to take a look at it and see if you see anything in it, or even a electronic voice phenomena. They'll send you a clip and ask you to listen to it. The only thing today, though, is that the technology has gotten so good that it's hard to really give somebody some constructive feedback on that. I mean, you don't want to say, you listen to their story and see if they have anything else to say about it. But as for just based on a photograph or a video, I mean, I never really provide an opinion on it. I just say, it's interesting looking photograph or whatnot. But I know from, taking courses at the Rhine that there's, software out there and ghost apps out there now to add ghosts to your photos. There's also that deep fake technology that's been going around. I'm not sure if you've seen any of the videos, but you can take a picture from the 1800s, scan it through this app, and then it'll have the person in the picture move their head from side to side and move their mouth, and they look real. It's to try and give you an image of what they would have looked like in person. And during one of my apparitions and haunting lectures that I do, I always show a photo of my niece and nephew because they had a picture of them on this dock, this wooden dock in front of a lake, and really beautiful background and stuff. And the only thing that was real in that picture was my niece and nephew. The dock wasn't real. The lake wasn't real. The reflection in the lake wasn't real. It was all digitally enhanced. But to look at the photo, you wouldn't think that. You would at least think that they're sitting on the dock. You might think that maybe the background's fake, but even the dock, it was all green screens, and you can't tell. And when I was leaving law enforcement, I left in May 2020. I know that technological crime units were starting to have difficulty, even determining the authenticity of forensic evidence, like digital forensic evidence. So if law enforcement's struggling to prove if stuff is real, then chances are that the equipment and the software that most of us have access to, then we're probably not going to be able to determine anything of value out of that evidence.
True. What is real? Oh my God, the Matrix meets, Skynet right there.
Yeah, it's getting
true.
crazy. It's getting
It
crazy.
really is.
I mean, it's good in some ways, but and that's the thing about the paranormal. Like, fraud has always been rampant in it. Dating back to the spiritualism movement and the mediums and the days of the SPR, where the Society for Psychical Research started to investigate, these amazing claims, only to have most of them turn out to be frauds. And I mean, that still exists in today's world of parapsychology, just on a different level. Now it's kind of not so much people bilking other individuals out of money. Now it's kind of there's kind of a movement to kind of see if they can trick a parapsychologist or trick a paranormal investigator with something just for fun or what,
or to get views on their TikTok or get views on their YouTube. Yeah, I get tagged on that a lot on my social media. Oh, look at this video. I'm like, this is a creator who started a YouTube channel on pranks. So I wouldn't take with a grain of salt anything he posts, with great accuracy. But it is true. It's like we spend so much time learning how to falsify or make these fraudulent videos that we forget how to debunk them. And I just learned in my this other online class I'm taking with Photoshop, my professor, because I told him what I was doing, he's like, oh, do you want to learn how to find out if a photo, I guess a phantom photo is fake? I'm like, how do you do that? He's like, well, let me find one on the net. He found one, he uploaded it. He's like, you're going to go on your histogram and you're going to look at the hue saturation. If the hue saturation is high, then it's fake. And if it's really low, then it's real. And sure enough, the hue saturation on the photo, when he clicked on the image of this apparition, it like you can see on the graph, like it just zipped up, and it was really interesting that there are some secrets and some ways to debunk those things. I just wish a lot of us can start learning that instead of like creating that. But that was a good point that you brought up, Elliot, about technology and how like it's kind of like morphing what we as a society are, wanting to see. All of us wants to see something that, deep down inside we think is real because of what Hollywood has provided us. And
Absolutely.
Yes. And what we've seen in the Conjuring series, which don't even get me started, because we want to be close to that experience in some way. And I want to ask you this question. Have you ever responded to a case or investigated a case where individuals wanted to have a ghost so bad they did everything in their power, possibly grab some sort of a doll off of eBay or use a Ouija board or try to manifest something out of nothing? Have you ever responded to a case like that in your time?
Not so much ordering haunted items, although I am guilty of that. I'll get into a little story.
Oh, great! You're going to tell us a story now.
But I have had cases where if there is something paranormal going on that I don't believe that it's being caused by a discarnate entity, I believe that it's being caused by psychokinesis, because the person is basically attracting all this energy to themselves, and they're manifesting, the certain like little things that they might be seeing, like hearing footsteps or any sort of activity like that. I have had a few cases like that where when you start breaking it down, and a lot of it comes back to the interviewing all the people and their family members, and you start to pick up on. Sometimes you can start to pick up on some trends, like there's some family influence, or people are feeding into other people's ideas, and it starts to kind of get carried away. And then there are those individuals out there that they want to have a haunting so bad that if you come in and, tell them that look, I'm just not finding anything here that's indicative of a haunting, then they move on to the next organization or whatnot, almost like they're just out to seek validation, or find somebody that's going to validate their thoughts and their concerns. So going back to the haunted item. So
yes, what did you find, Elliot?
what happened is I saw somebody had posted on a Facebook like paranormal group that somebody was selling in a local buy and sell a haunted doll, haunted monkey, and I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. So I tried tracking down the original ad. So I ended up tracking down the girl that posted the ad. I think it saw that she was from Missouri. So then I started looking at some Missouri buy and sell items, and I actually found it. It was on I think Missouri like Facebook Marketplace, and so I see this ugly looking monkey. I'm looking at him right now. He's got a small head, small baby hands. He's wearing like some sort of funky hippie looking socks, and he's got this big fur chest. So I read the description, and it basically says that they had to keep this thing locked in a trunk, that they just want to get rid of it. They only want serious buyers, so contact me. So I sent the guy a message, and I just said, like, just saw this monkey, like, what's the story with it? Said his parents run a flea market, basically, and this one gentleman had created this item and then died shortly afterwards. And when his sisters were clearing out his house, they were selling all of his stuff, and they wanted to get rid of this monkey. So the family that runs the flea market took it, and the son took it to his house. And he said that he had personally witnessed the monkey turn its head from the corner of his eye once, and that when him and his girlfriend would come home from work or from being out, they find the monkey in different locations in the house. Whoa. So the girlfriend got so freaked out that they ended up putting him into this like treasure chest with a lock on it, and then wanted to sell it. So I went back through his posts and I took a look to see if he miraculously was selling any other haunted items or ever sold any other haunted items, and there was nothing listed there, actually. So it kind of led me to believe that this was a one-off for this guy at least. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to risk it. I'll buy it and have it shipped here and set some cameras up on it and see if anything happens. And he did say that he finds during a full moon that the item can become a little bit more active. But I've had him now for 2 months and he hasn't moved at all. So I don't know.
So nothing out of the ordinary has occurred.
Nothing out of the ordinary, yes. I sometimes, and I have investigated very haunted houses where sometimes a lot of stuff happens, and then it can go through a period of 2-3 months where nothing happens. So, I mean, it's only been 2 months. Nothing's happened yet. Maybe he's recharging his psychokinetic powers, but
yes. He's thinking, you just mocked my socks, brah. It's on tonight.
Exactly.
He's like, you haven't seen anything yet. Just wait till you go to sleep now.
I'm going to hear a lot of strange noises coming from my office tonight, yeah. But that's the only one, because that's kind of a modern day type fraud that's occurring. I noticed is you can go on Etsy and type in haunted doll, and everyone seems to be selling these haunted dolls. They call them vessels. They say that there's a soul trapped in them. A lot of that I don't buy into.
I don't buy into it. It's like tell me how a soul gets trapped in an item. You tell me how this occurs. Well, right. I don't know. I just know that I'm settling this for $500 because I need to pay my phone bill and most of my bills at home. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And it is really popular. I mean, you can go on eBay, you can go on Etsy, you just type in haunted object and you'll get a ton of them. So it's
a phenomenon now. Remember in I think it was the first week, how Lloyd was in his lectures was describing the items that were sold during the Victorian era of like ghost in a can, or you can actually adopt a ghost. Like people really, yeah.
Like there's children who need real adoption, but sure, go for the ghost. That's fine. That's fine.
I don't want a live child. I want a dead one. Speaking of haunted houses, let's talk about Evil in Exeter, one of your books. And you're talking about this Rhode Island haunting. Can we get a little more tea on that?
Yeah, for sure. So that was probably the most active house that that I investigated. Well, so active that it encouraged me to write my first book.
Wow.
But basically what happened is I had met a girl on Instagram, and she had posted a photo where she kind of looked like Gillian Anderson. So I had just commented on her picture. I said, "Oh, you kind of look like Dana Scully in this picture." So then she private messaged me and just said, "Actually, I had won like a top 10 Gillian Anderson lookalike," and she sent me like the article that was in the magazine. So that was kind of cool. So we started talking, and then it would have been in 2018, in May 2018. I decided to fly down to Rhode Island for a weekend, get a hotel, could meet up with her, and have her show me some of the local sites. So it was really cool. Went around all of Rhode Island, got to see the real Conjuring house, got to see the Devil's Footprints in North Kingston. There's a story behind those. Got to see Mercy Brown's grave, which is right in Exeter. She was believed to be a vampire back in the day. So it was really cool, and I decided to go back and see her again. And this time she invited me to stay at her house, but she had warned me before, and we got talking about the paranormal, and she was telling me that her family's been surrounded by ghosts their whole life, and they were on the TV show Ghost Hunters. And I actually found the episode and watched it, and her story matched, the episode, and so it was really cool. And she said, like, I just want to let you know, like, whenever I have a guy over at the house, like, the activity seems to pick up or whatever. And I was like, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever, not too worried about it. And so from the first time that I ever walked into the house, it wasn't that long afterwards that I started to start witness stuff that didn't make sense. Doors were opening and closing on their own, locking and unlocking on their own.
Oh my God.
Her children didn't sleep for 3 days straight. They said that they could hear scratching coming from their walls. And of course, I being a police officer at the time, I was like, checking everything I could to make sure like the doors were level, that there was no brush or tree branches or squirrels at the kids' windowsill. Checked all that out. It was, no explanation for it. I heard 3 distinct footsteps walk towards me one day in the kitchen. And it got so bad that one night we ended up going to the Catholic Church and getting some holy water just to have on hand. And later that night at 1:30 in the morning, all of the fire alarms in the house started to go off. And it was supposed to be one of those systems where when the one fire alarm goes off, the whole house goes off. It was hardwired in. But they were going off sporadically. Like one would go off in the kids' bedroom, one would go off in the hallway. It seemed to go off. So after it went off on its own, then they seemed to go off whenever you would yell at the entity in the house. Whoa. And they would only turn off, each individual one would only turn off when it was splashed with holy water.
Oh my God.
So I ended up catching like, it was about a 1.5-minute clip of these alarms just, acting all crazy. And we followed up with Kitty, which was the brand, the following day. And they had no explanation for why they were doing that. And they sent a brand new, smoke alarms to install. And just all kinds of other strange stuff happening, like toys would be manipulated by themselves. They'd go off at 3 a.m. There was house flies, almost like in Amityville, like just these hundreds of these house flies just showing up out of nowhere. And we had to buy those sticky tape things, and they'd be filled within minutes of flies. And you would just get like physically drained in the house. Like when you were in the house, you were exhausted. And, if you left the house and got anywhere away from the house, you'd feel more energy, and just, there was definitely something in the house that was draining all the energy out of the people and out of, any sort of electronics and stuff that were there. So eventually, her son started to display some really strange behavior one day. Like he started like hissing like a snake, and
oh my gosh,
the family priest that they had was actually an exorcist. His name's Father Bob Bailey, and he's been on a few different paranormal shows, pretty popular out in Rhode Island. So he had given some blessed medallions, and it was interesting because the child didn't know which ones were blessed and which ones weren't. And every time they were all put on him, he would only rip the blessed ones off and say that they were from the church, and he'd throw them across the floor.
Oh.
And one night he was just all out of sorts, and we actually had a bit of holy water on the counter, so we just put a little bit on his forehead, and his nose started to bleed, like almost like something you'd see in a movie. So the next day, when they were at school, one of the master bedroom, by a few different mediums, had felt that that was the connection to where the entity was, or there was a portal in this master bedroom. So while the kids were at school, it was just Haley and I used some religious provocation to see if I could get this thing to respond to us. And I was recording it on my iPhone, just the audio, and splashing holy water in all four corners of the house, and, trying to ask for it to, not ask, to command it to give us a sign that it was there. And there was nothing. But later that day, when we went to go pick up her son, she said, "How do you think he's going to act today?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "He hasn't been, himself the last couple of days. I wouldn't be surprised, if the behavior continues." And sure enough, in the car, he was like scratching at us and trying to spit at us, and he was hissing like a snake. And even when we picked him up, his teacher said that he was off, and he didn't seem like he wanted to be there, and he wasn't like washing his hands like normally he likes to be like clean, and he was just being like dirty, and just like all these like crazy signs that are usually consistent with like a demonic case. And so we no sooner pull into the driveway after we pick up his sister from school, and all of a sudden over the Bluetooth, there was music playing from Haley's phone. All of a sudden over the Bluetooth in the car, her music stops. It picks up the sound clip from my phone from the day before, and it literally starts at the part where it says, "In the name of Jesus Christ and the blood of Christ, give me a sign." And that's where the clip starts playing over the car, as loud as it can. Like it was like the volume was like on 30. So the two kids like jump out of the car, and they're all freaked out. And then Haley's getting all freaked out, and she's like, "Listen, we got to do something about this." So we called the father, but he was not available to. He had been reassigned, so he wasn't doing exorcism type work anymore.
Oh my God.
So we ended up calling a medium in the area that was fairly reputable. There was no known credibility issues or anything like that at the time. So she had come over and had a bunch of different herbs and sage and stuff like that. So she put it into a tin pan and lit it on fire and did her thing. She was non-denominational, so like I said, she'd talk to her people that she believes in, angels or whatever. And up in the master bedroom, there was the queen size bed. The medium was over on the far left side towards the window. Haley and I were on the right side, and in between us we could feel this cold spot, and it was so cold that you could actually see like goosebumps and the hair standing up on your arm. So I had the FLIR and the EMF reader, and there was no radiation, electromagnetic radiation coming on the detector, and of course there was no detection on the thermometer either for the FLIR, which is not uncommon in paranormal cases. A lot of people feel the cold spots, and they have signs of the cold spots, such as goosebumps, but you actually don't get a reading, so that's not unusual. But what was unusual, and there's a picture of it in the book, is when I moved the FLIR to the bed, you could see the pan that had the sage and the herbs and stuff burning on the bed, and it was bright hot on the FLIR because it was, it was on fire or whatever, smoking. But then all around it were these like dark blue, they look like distorted footprints or hoof prints. And it was, it went basically up the side of the bed, around the sage and the herb. And then we didn't tell the medium what we were seeing. And then all of a sudden, when it looked like the footprints had gone over to where the medium was, she spontaneously said, "I feel like the presence is over, like by me," and which was interesting because of what we were seeing on the FLIR. And then, she called upon Michael the Archangel and did a few her prayers. And then she felt like the entity had dissipated. And Haley and I kind of looked at each other and looked at her and said, like, well, we don't feel anything different. And she said it's not like the movies where, windows are blowing out and the roof's half caving in and we're all full of scratches and half dead. So, she mentioned that she just feels like that negative energy has disappeared. And I mean, believe it or not, basically there's been very little activity at the house ever since then. Wow. And that would have been around November of 2018 because the book came out in May 2019. So again, it was an extraordinary event, and I've talked about it a lot on different podcasts and been questioned on it quite a bit, but all I can say is what I witnessed, and that it was pretty wild investigation.
It certainly does sound like it, and one thing that we carry with us is that human experience, is that first encounter. I don't know if you've been presented with this question, but do you think that the impact came from her son rather than the environment? I always like to believe, is it the environment that is impacting us or the haunting, or is it us impacting the haunting or the environment in this case?
Well, I did look at it especially with my training in parapsychology. I did look at it to see if it was a poltergeist case,
right?
A case of psychokinesis. And I figured that if it was, then the living agent in this case would have been Haley, not so much her son.
Got you.
But the only thing that kind of deterred me from that was when Haley was a teenager, she had seen the entity. And the entity, there's a drawing in the book, but we had the graphic designer basically turn the drawing into the cover of the book. So the entity that you see on the cover of Evil in Exeter is the entity that Haley had seen. And what happened is she was 16 or 17 years old at the time. She was with a boyfriend that was not so nice to her. They just got back from a fair, and he was going to come over and either tug her hair in the kitchen or pop one of her balloons. And I guess Haley had this look on her face towards the door frame. And when he turned around to look, they both saw this entity that was about 6 feet tall, pale gray skin, no eyes, just like completely black eye sockets.
I am looking at it right now, guys. If you Google Evil in Exeter, and also buy the book, by the way. Bryce, are you ready for this?
I have also Googled it, and I regret it deeply. I regret Googling that in the very deep part of my heart.
Oh my God. That
was the entity that she had seen. So in poltergeist cases, you don't see entities, and if you do see entities, they're usually like a distorted black blob or mass is what people have reported. But generally, you don't see an entity because a poltergeist is not any sort of discarnate entity. So there was that, and then again, take it for what it's worth. There was 3 separate mediums that could all describe similar looking entity that was attached to Haley. So
I'm looking at her your picture on this book, because you guys look really cute, by the way, on the back of this book. I mean, yeah, she's a cute girl. Of course this thing would get attached to her. So I could see it like claiming its territory. Like, no, you won't do it all.
Yeah, and it was strange too, because there was another incident with that same boyfriend. They got into an argument upstairs at her parents' house, and he turned around to like walk down the stairs, and then all of a sudden something pushed him. He actually thought Haley had pushed him down the stairs, but it was the entity, presumably. And the father was sitting downstairs in the living room in his chair, and he saw the guy fall down the stairs, because he said like none of his feet actually hit any steps. It was like he just kind of like forcefully levitated down the stairs.
Oh my God.
So it was strange. It was almost like part of the entity was like kind of protecting her in certain ways, but then other parts of it were making her life like a living hell. So it was a really interesting case for sure.
Yeah, I could see why this would definitely inspire you to write a book, because I'm sure there are many cases like Haley out there that they don't understand what it truly is. And can you, with every fiber in your being, say that it was demonic? Or I noticed you use the term negative entity.
Yeah, because I'm not 100% sure if I would say that it was demonic. Even when we talked to Father Bailey, he said, based on the description of this thing with no eyes and just the blackness, he said if it's not a demon, then it would at the very least be what he considers, or the Catholic Church considers, a damned soul. And that damned souls need to be treated just like a demon. And, parapsychologists believe that when somebody passes away, a person passes away, that their personality stays the same. So if you were a mean son of a gun in real life and then passed away, it's assumed that you will still be that same person, the same human consciousness in the afterlife. So whether this thing was demonic or whether it was just a very mean-spirited entity, I'm not 100% sure.
Yes, we like to throw the term us as society, because we don't know what it is, but because like we're influenced by what we've seen portrayed in Hollywood, that everything that we can't explain and that is negative is never a negative entity, is always demonic or from the depths of hell. But really, I feel like if your life was in jeopardy, or you would have seen probably the walls bleeding or whatnot, then yes, it could have been, what it was. But it, like you said, I believe like it could have been something most likely negative, and that just got attracted to Haley and her energy and her aura and her being. So who knows? But that is such, a crazy experience. Are you and Haley still together, or are you guys?
No, we're not. We were only together a short time, and then we were actually broken up, I think, by the time the book came out. But we have a business relationship, and she's fine. She hasn't had any issues at the house. She runs her own like cover band in Rhode Island, and her and the kids are doing well. And
that's good to hear.
It's good that it's good to see that they actually, that they got the help and that they haven't had any issues, because you always hear stories of these amateur ghost hunters that come in and they do more damage than good, and they don't really actually help the family. 100%. They come in with their equipment and they take some pictures and they get some readings, and then they leave and just say like, I don't know, and then they're gone, and the family's left dealing with the mess. Because I always thought, as a parapsychological investigator, that it would be really cool to live in a haunted house, but that case taught me that was something very stupid to wish for, because I actually found when I would come back to Canada, it felt like a break. Like it was like, I finally get like a break from the paranormal kind of thing, because it was just so much activity and like it drained you. And you'd see like the family get really upset, and they're like, why is this happening to us? And, how come no one can help us? And, so you're left searching for answers and trying to help this family like legitimately, rather than getting a request through your website to just go tramp through somebody's house and take pictures and the usual stuff that kind of happens.
Exactly. That is something that in my journey as an investigator, and this is, I don't know if you want to like kind of tread on this too, and I want your input on it, but I was always told that there is a difference between an investigator, a paranormal investigator, and a ghost hunter. And that, paranormal investigators are more skeptic. We're there to debunk and not to prove anything. Unless it is unexplainable, then we'll come forward and say, hey, there's something here and we really can't explain it. To where ghost hunters are there for more of the urban exploration and their self-justification of what is out there. Can you explain to us in your personal opinion, those differences? And for anyone who wants to portray or go on this journey of being a paranormal investigator, what is it that you need to take in and learn before getting into this field?
Yeah, those are all really good points for sure. Certainly I would recommend taking some sort of reputable course that you can, just to learn about what parapsychology is. A lot of people don't even know what parapsychology is, but it's the study of extrasensory perception, mind matter interaction or psychokinesis, and survival of bodily death. So UFOs and strange creatures like Bigfoot and stuff like that, it doesn't fall under parapsychology. But a lot of these groups, and my group as well, like, we'll look into other phenomena as well that's outside of parapsychology. But it seems to be the most that we get contacted about are hauntings, which is my favorite subject anyway. So, definitely, like, the Ryan Education Center is a spot for people to start taking some courses. They offer a field investigators course, and they also offer an advanced field investigation course. So they're both really good to kind of understand, how everything works.
And FYI, guys, Elliot and I are taking that course together, and it's amazing. It's great. Like, I highly recommend that you look into that. And
it's good. And these guys are, they stemmed from Duke University's parapsychology laboratory. They have some of the best experts come in here. And, Paul Smith teaches their remote viewing. He worked on Project Stargate for 7 years. You got Lloyd Auerbach, who's been a parapsychologist for at least over 30 years for sure. You got John Croft that teaches, he's doing my research methods parapsychology course right now. That guy has a lot of experimental parapsychology experience. So it's definitely worth going somewhere reputable to kind of get that background. And then if you have that background, I think you just kind of have that educational piece with you. So, for example, what I notice on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter a lot are these ghost hunters, like you described, that are going out to, like, local land spots, abandoned places, graveyards, stuff like that. And a lot of them do it just for fun and whatnot. And they're trying to contribute to the paranormal community. Like, they're capturing, like, electronic voice phenomena and pictures and videos, and they're uploading it and sharing it, which is all positive stuff. But you have to kind of know, like, what you're getting into. And I do see a lot of people that go to a place, they capture what they think is electronic voice phenomena, and they call it evidence or proof that the place is haunted. But we don't even know what EVPs are. There's 4 different theories on what it could be. One, and this is the one that we all hope it is that it's a discarnate entity trying to communicate with us through a recording device. The second one, which I actually met a paranormal investigator that actually had this happen to her, Michelle DeRoche, who does a radio show up in Ontario, and she's a very well-known paranormal investigator up here. She actually said she had a case where she was extremely worried about her daughter, who was at home sick with her husband, and she kept saying it in her head, I got to get home to my daughter, I got to get home to my daughter. And they're sitting at the table meeting with the client doing an initial interview, and when her partner that was with her later reviewed all the evidence from the home, like the photographs and the audio, they actually captured her thought on the tape, which is one of the other theories of EVPs, is that you're catching through telepathy. You're catching a response from either the investigator, the homeowner, or somebody else that's present. And so we know that can happen because I know someone personally that it happened to. And then, of course, there's the theory that it could be some sort of radio interference or some sort of cellular Wi-Fi interference being intercepted on the tape. And I actually had a case where somebody had contacted me through They were chatting using the voice recording on Facebook Messenger with their friend, and they ended up capturing, like, this really weird, gruff sounding voice. And so he sent me the clip, and I had a friend of mine that was part of the technological crime unit with the RCMP. I had him analyze the audio, and the best guess that he could come up with was that it was some sort of interference. It didn't look like it was faked. It didn't it didn't look like it was manipulated in any sort of way. It literally looked like it was some sort of like interference or crossover conversation that was recorded for some reason. So, EVPs they're nice if there's other things in the environment happening that, like for example, like if the people saw an apparition and you're there and you witness something happen and you got temperature drops, like either you physically feel it or you have it recorded on your equipment, and then you capture like an EVP, like all that together is a lot better than just going out and capturing the sound and uploading it and saying that it's a ghost, because the fourth theory is that it's audio pareidolia, which is our brain is designed to, and it's the same with visual as well. Pareidolia is that our brain is designed to make sense of stuff. So when we hear a strange noise, we try and put meaning and context to it, and it's the same with a picture. Like you can look at the clouds and you can envision it looking like a dinosaur or looking like a bird flying or whatever, because our brains are wired to make sense of imagery and sound. So that's a lot of stuff you don't see those ghost hunting groups explain when they're posting that. They just post it saying, really cool voice recording and this is what it is kind of thing. But you don't actually see them try and explain like the science behind it, I guess.
Right. And if they try, some people are like, no, I think that's a ghost. You're like, no, I'm trying to explain that it could be other things, but go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, you're always going to get those people. I still see the photos as well of orbs. They call them. Oh
God.
and they always talk about ghostweb.com being the starter of that. They actually teach it at the Rhine. It was Sharon and Dave Oster that started ghostweb.com, and they were having people send in their photographs. And unfortunately, most of the photographs that were being displayed at that time, and this is like, we're talking like late 90s, like when I first started investigating, it's been proven to be like dust, water droplets, the strap in front of the camera lens, a finger in front of the camera lens, smoking, fog, even your breath. I actually took a picture of my dogs one night. I was outside. It wasn't that cold out, or didn't feel that cold, and I couldn't see my breath. And I took a picture of the two dogs outside. It was at nighttime, so when the flash went off to capture the two dogs, in the photo was actually mist, like what you would see in like a ghost photo kind of thing. And so the first thing I thought is, I'm not thinking like, oh, there's a spirit around me and my dogs outside of my front step. I'm thinking like, okay, it's like, obviously that's my breath in the air that I can't see, but just because of the way that the camera flash had hit, the air at that time, that's what it captured. So
right. And that's how you really analyze, guys. This is how you analyze photographs, especially with photographs of orbs. I remember I was sent a picture a while back of this girl. She was taking pictures, and she was saying, look at this green dot on the camera, and I think it's my dad. I really think it's my dad. Like, what do you think? And I was just looking at him like, that's actually it's a picture glare. And I had to send her like this article of like, what picture glares look like from our, iPhone cameras. And she kind of had a hard time accepting that, because she really wanted it to be, I guess, her dad. She missed him so much that this is what she wholeheartedly wanted so bad for me to confirm. And I was like, I can't confirm that. I'm sorry. Like, I'm showing you proof that this is actually technical error. This is something that is common when you take photographs. So yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, that's one thing, like we had talked about earlier, is that that was probably somebody that was looking for validation,
right?
That that it was her dad, to make herself feel good. And that's also the caution that I give people as well. I actually had a friend post on Facebook not too long ago looking for a medium, because I know this friend has a hard time dealing with a family member that had passed. But that kind of goes back to the 1800s of parapsychology. Like, that's why people sought out mediums, was because they were grieving and they wanted to communicate with a loved one. And you've got people out there that will take financial advantage of people in that kind of situation. So I always, tell them to be cautious. And I actually gave her the website for the Windbridge Institute. Because they test all their mediums there, and so does the Rhine. Actually, I think the Rhine and Windbridge test them both. So, as far as those two organizations are concerned, they're fairly credible individuals. So, if you're going to reach out to somebody, you might want to go through one of the ones that have been kind of certified, I guess they call it. And the other thing is you don't have to be afraid of doing it over the phone, because obviously some of these mediums are going to be in certain states or locations, and you're not able to go there. But there's been studies that have been done that show, extrasensory perception is not limited by distance. And one of those studies was the Pierce Pratt study that they did at Duke University, where they were able to determine that they were having really good success rates on testing ESP, and it didn't matter how far the distance was. So you don't have to worry about it not working over the phone per se.
Wow.
We have 10 more minutes, and I wanted to introduce to everyone PPRI, Elliot. Can you explain to our audience what is PPRI, what you guys have done, and what was your most credible investigation out of PPRI, and what's to come for PPRI in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So I started paranormal phenomena research and investigation in 1997. Like I said earlier, it was just two of us, and we eventually grew to be quite large. We had at one point over 100 members from all different places. We ended up having a chapter in Boston, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, Ontario, and I had a really good investigator in Australia, so there was kind of like an Australian chapter. But as I found, and I saw it with the RCMP as well, because it's a federal police force and it has, close to 20,000 staff members, and it's very rank structured. But I found the same thing as well with PPRI, is that the organization overall is only as good as the people you have running it. So you really relied heavily to have really good sounding, state and provincial directors. And if they had like some radical beliefs or whatnot, they're going to pass it on to their investigators, and that's just not going to be as solid of a chapter as what I wanted it to be, I guess, at the end of the day, since I was the director. So we decided to get away from the chapter model, and now we just have a small team of subject matter experts. So there's two parapsychologists, myself and Daryl Walsh, and then my co-founder, Spencer Collier, has a technology background. He's a web developer and a marketer. My fiance, Sarah Crawley, is our chief financial officer for the organization, and an investigator, and Mike Shaw and Chad Murphy are two of my investigators. And then my future brother-in-law, Andrew, is retired Canadian Air Force, and used to run his own group when he lived out in Western Canada. So he is also one of my investigators. So there's 7 of us in total, a very small team, 2 in the New England area and the rest of us in Nova Scotia. So we cover Atlantic Canada and the New England states. We're non-profit, so we're free. All our services are free. We'll travel to anywhere in the New England area and Nova Scotia. We will travel outside of that if clients were willing to at least pay for travel and accommodations and meals, because again, we are non-profit. We're in the process actually of getting charitable status, so that's going to be a lot more administrative paperwork on my end to do that, but we're really trying to push the educational aspect in parapsychology. So we're trying to get charity status, in Canada. And part of the educational agenda that I have planned for paranormal phenomena research investigation is to create an introduction to parapsychology course, because there's obviously a very high demand for it right now. And I've taken so many different courses that I used to actually help Daryl teach his 2 courses later on at the Nova Scotia Community College. So it's something I enjoy doing, and it's something that I'm passionate about, is getting that proper education out there and dispelling myths. So we're working on that. We're also working on, this is going to be in 2023 now, because COVID delayed it, but we're trying to do the Halifax Paranormal Symposium, where we want to have 2 days of lectures, about an hour and a half lecture from experts in all kinds of different fields. You know, like you might have Lloyd Auerbach come talk about poltergeists, and you might have Tony Spira from New England Society for Psychic Research come and talk about demonology. You know, that kind of feel to it. We want it to be, you know, a world-class event. So there's a lot of planning involved in that. We had to bump it to 2023 just because of all the COVID stuff, and there's so much planning involved in it. But that is something that we're working towards. Other than that, we have one investigation on the go right now. It's been fairly quiet, but you know, we are doing one investigation, and you know, once we get that charity status as well, we're hoping that, you know, we can start doing some crowdfunding things to try and generate, you know, some revenue for the organization, because right now it basically, comes out of mine or Spencer's pocket, basically. It'll be good, you know, to kind of keep it going. And now I'm kind of managing it full time, and that's my full time job now. I have more time and effort to put into it, so.
I'm so happy to know that your passion is fully manifested, Elliot. That's so amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. So I think it's, you know, I'm very lucky that I'm able to do it. And, that's why I want to take, you know, PPRI to the next level, get that charity status. Our website's fairly new. Spencer just launched it, I think late last year maybe, or maybe even early this year. You know, we try and post, we post whenever we're doing podcasts on there so people can go on and listen to it as part of our educational agenda. Wow. And, anytime I write any sort of papers, like Ryan, you know, 2 of the courses I took from Ryan get you to write a paper at the end of the course. So I always, you know, upload those once they're done as well. So I wrote a paper on psychokinesis, for theories of psi, and I wrote, another paper, I think it was on a phenomenological study for one of the research courses, I think. So, you know, we try and put up whatever we can that's reputable, and we also call out certain things that aren't reputable, you know, like I posted this week an investigation I saw where somebody had just posted a video on Instagram and basically talked about it being evidence of the paranormal, but there was like no background story to it at all. It was like you could see somebody ducking down, like they were zooming in on a tombstone, and you can see the reflection in the back, and you can see somebody ducking down. But there was no description. It didn't say like who else was in the graveyard. It didn't say how many investigators were there. It didn't say any follow-up that was done. And then the next day I found another article, which was really good. Like the people went in, they did their investigation, they talked about, you know, what they thought was kind of strange, what they thought they kind of ruled out. And I thought it was, you know, a better article kind of thing. So I usually try and draw people's attention to, you know, to hokey stuff and also legitimate studies.
That's what it's all about. And hopefully for our audience and, you know, paranormal enthusiasts, people who want to really, you know, portray something in this field or be involved in it, you have to understand it starts with education. And that was something that I learned, you know, to be honest, like, yeah, Lloyd probably would be a little upset about it, but I didn't know about it. I didn't know that there are all these institutes out there that provide you with a lot of credited information and education. And it's because I learned everything or thought everything that I saw on television is how you are supposed to, you know, apply it in the field. And that is something that I don't know. It just it didn't feel right in my stomach. And I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions, especially when I would go investigate with other individuals like, oh, well, why does this happen? Or, you know, what is the whole purpose of the SLS? Like, where is it getting the information? And when people couldn't explain that to me, I'm like, okay, well, there has to be some sort of explanation for this. And eventually, you know, I heard about Lloyd and his studies and his lectures, and I heard a lecture of his, and I was like, done. Like, I have to take a class at the Rhine Institute with Lloyd. And it just answered all my questions. So that is something that I expect everyone to do, and definitely go check out Elliott's Institute PPRI. Elliot, where can people find more information about the Institute? Where can they reach out to you if they have any questions or want to get you on their podcast? Where can people reach out to you?
Yeah, probably the best spot is our website, which is ppri.net. And it's got our contact information on there. Like I said, it's got some resources on there. We just created a resource section, so it links to any university courses that I find that teach parapsychology type courses. I put those on there. I've got the Ryan Education Center on there. I've got other, reputable organizations in case, like, you're over in the UK, for example, you want to get in touch with the Society for Psychic Research. So it's really good resource-wise. Like I said, I put news articles on there when I can. And it's got a link as well to under our store section. It's got links to our books, like mine and Daryl. Me and Daryl are the only two in the group that have written books. But it's got links to like Amazon and some of the publisher websites that you can order copies of our books from as well. Daryl's books are really good if you're from the Maritimes. It covers off a bunch of different ghost stories from all over the Maritimes. He's got two. One is just Ghosts of Nova Scotia, it's called, and then the other one's called Canada's Haunted Seas and Shores, and it's about pirates and ghost ships because we have, like Nova Scotia is home to Oak Island.
Oh, I bet. Oh, yeah. The Curse of Oak Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a lot of phantom ship sightings and stuff like that here.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah, so it's there's a lot of stuff from our website that people would find interesting for sure.
And we thought that Hollyweird is weird, but Canada, Nova Scotia is weirder. You guys got pirate ghosts. Well, so does San Diego, but you guys have a lot more over there going on, for sure.
We do. Well, Nova Scotia stands for New Scotland, so we have a lot of, British and Scottish and Irish history. So Nova Scotia is a bit of everything. It's got ghost stories. It's got mythical creatures. Like I said, we investigated a case of a Black Panther before. It's got
so crazy.
Cape Breton Highlands. It's got fairies. There's stories of fairies, but fairies are also common over in Scotland, so it kind of makes sense that folklore has kind of carried over. But yeah, it's a really neat place to do parapsychological work for sure.
Well, I'm definitely going to go over there once this pandemic really calms down. Because I know it hasn't calmed down over there where you're at. You guys are on your second or third or fourth lockdown. And hopefully things will get better for you over there, Elliot. But it seems like you're making waves, man, online. And I'm just so happy and honored to be, in a class with you and to be sitting here with you, chatting with you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate, again, like I said, you guys have me on the show. I like to pop on the odd podcast here and there and just try and clear up some of the misconceptions in parapsychology. And
that's how you know when you're a really good investigator and parapsychologist, of course. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Elliot, for being a part of our podcast.
Thank you so much.
And getting Hollyweird with us. And we hope to have you back on soon so you could tell us more about these legends and lores and cryptids and hauntings and phantom ships in Canada. I'm all about this now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Anytime you want me on, just let me know. I'd
most likely. Well, I will definitely see you in class tomorrow morning because tomorrow we have our third week of our courses.
3 or 4 weeks. So
I know, we're almost there, but I want to continue taking more. And I'll definitely look into taking one of your classes, so let me know.
Yeah, for sure I will. I want to create some more other than just intro to parapsychology. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than I thought. So I'll start with this one and we'll see how it goes.
Well, we'll definitely be rooting for you, Elliot. Thank you so much once again, guys. And take care. Bryce, do you have anything you want to say?
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Another huge thank you to our friend over at PPRI. That's Elliott Van Dusen. Elliott Van Dusen is the director of Paranormal Phenomena Research and Investigation. And if you want to learn more about PPRI and what they do, you can head on over to their website, which is www.ppri.net. Be sure to check out his books, Evil in Exeter and Supernatural Encounters, True Paranormal Accounts from Law Enforcement on Amazon.com. You can purchase them in the Kindle or paperback form. You can also follow up with what Elliot is doing because he has quite a few projects coming along, and we'll touch on that very shortly. You can follow him on Facebook and Instagram at PPRI Inc. and EK Van Dusen. He's also on Twitter at PPRI Inc. and Van Dusen 98. Speaking of projects, he's coming up with his second installment of Supernatural Encounters, which is called More Supernatural Encounters from Law Enforcement, and it's a new book that will be released in fall of 2021. He also has a podcast that will be released very shortly, and it's called the Dueling Parapsychologist Podcast with co-host Daryl Walsh. He is also conjuring up an online class in parapsychology called Introduction to Parapsychology, which he hopes to deploy in September of 2021. So if you follow him on those social medias, and if you start listening to Dueling Parapsychologist podcasts, then you'll know when to sign up. And trust me, Bryce and I will probably be the first ones in line. Also, as another reminder, don't forget to check out our partners over at Manscaped.com. Be sure to use the code PARANORMAL to save 20% off products and also get your free shipping, because free is a really good thing. And since Father's Day is right around the corner, guys, they definitely have some pretty dope products to purchase for Father's Day. I know I have a few already in my cart because shopping for my dad's a little difficult. He's a little particular, but when it comes to his grooming needs, I know for a fact that Manscaped.com definitely has him covered. And if you have a few more minutes, guys, to spare just 1 or 2 minutes, if you can head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating and write us a positive review, it would help us out tremendously. It helps us indie podcasters become a little more visible, helps us become a little more known. If you want to stalk us on our social media, then you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Hollyweird Paranormal, and Twitter at HWP Podcast. We also have a website. Yes, we are grown adults. You can find us at www.hollyweirdparanormal.com, and there you can shop through our merch store, find our Hollyweird Paranormal gear, also get caught up on past episodes and seasons, and you can also click on that little Patreon link because that will definitely take you to our Patreon page. Yes, we're going to segue to Patreon territory. If you want to become a Hollyweird producer, you want to support the Hollyweird Paranormal podcast, then you can do so by heading on over to our Patreon site or through our website. If you head on over to Patreon, you can go to www.patreon.com/Hollyweird Paranormal, and for as little as $1 or more per month, and you can schedule it for 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 months, however many months you want to support our podcasts. A little does go a long way, and we're so appreciative of what you guys can donate. You can do so, and you'll be gifted in so many amazing little gifts. We have pins, we have stickers, magnets, and even coasters. Cute little coasters to rest your iced coffee or tea on while you're listening to our podcast, of course. And not to mention, you'll also be given a little shout out. And speaking of shout outs, we do have one new member, a part of our Patreon squad, and that is Tara Patterson. Thank you, girl, for joining, and thank you so much for donating. Another thing too, another cool perk is we also have another podcast in relation to our Patreon. That's our secret podcast, and that's called the Saturday Night Ghost Club. And this is a podcast based on actual ghost stories that I've collected. These are true ghost stories, true accounts from my neighbors, acquaintances, my family members, friends, even like my dog groomer. I got my hairstylist sharing an experience of a haunted farm that she lived on in the Midwest. I mean, it's all there. And it will definitely make you sleep with your salt lamp on, maybe a circle of salt around your bed. So your mom's probably going to be wondering where all the salt is going. It's because you've been listening to this podcast, and it's really, really scary. Like, Bryce can't even fathom to listen to some of the episodes because we all know how Bryce is. All right, guys, till next time, we hope that you are staying safe, that you're staying healthy, and most of all, that you're staying Hollyweird. Till next time, friends, take care, and we'll talk to you later.